Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of Career Services webinar. And today we have Mr. Suman Chittimuri with us, and our topic today is how to excel at product management. If you have any questions during the session, please type them into the Q&A box. I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we'll also have some time for questions at the end. Suman is a director of product management at Microsoft. He began his career as a software engineer and played different roles in technology before moving to product management. He's passionate about building products which are valuable and useful. Suman has expertise in B2B and B2C product management. At Microsoft, he leads a Microsoft digital product team, and he is excited about solving the challenges of Microsoft employees and customers. So without further ado, I'll welcome Mr. Suman here today. Suman, over to you.
Thanks, Shivam. Thanks for having me here, and great start on the Friday evening. Do we have enough audience to get started, or should we give some time?
Yeah, we can start.
Okay. So let's keep it interactive. I have few slides, but I want to make sure that you come in and stop me at any point of time, or you can pose questions and Shivam can lead me through that questions. Make sense? So to start with, what I would like to understand is, what do you think from your point of view an excellence in product management mean? If you can start typing in your thoughts in the chat window, that will be helpful. Second question, what would be a key takeaways that you want from this session? I will try to cover as much as possible. If not, me and Shivam can come back offline and close those conversations. Let's give a minute and then we can get started. Nice. Adding value to the customer. Okay. Innovation. Okay. Nice. I think topics are coming in, so please, Shivam, keep a tab on it. I will get started. So, forum, one question is, why do you think product management is important, especially at this time of the century? Any thoughts? Why do you think the product management is very important today in the context? Yeah, I think perfect. I think very good thoughts coming in to ensure successful product delivery. Customer demands are growing. Things will be scattered across, obviously. There are multiple reasons out there, but I'm always fan of two definitions, right? One important aspect that product manager brings on the table is to ensure a market-driven approach. Because there are a lot of companies start with the technology and try to find a problem. However, those companies or those startups will not be successful. But if you start with a problem and a market-driven approach, your product will be successful, right? So product management is all about ensuring that you bring in market-driven approach and improve time to everything. That's the second aspect that a product manager brings on the table. It can be defining an MVP, it can be defining the right customer base, it can be defining a right pilot strategy, right go-to-market strategy, learning, doing A/B testing, it can be anything. But product management is all about improving time to everything. It can be design process, it can be solution process, it can be going live to the production and understanding the customer needs. So these are two important needs of why a product manager is needed, right? Okay. Sorry, I just moved it. So what we will do is, before we get to the topic of the day, which is excelling in the product manager, let's all understand key responsibilities of product manager, right? I know we all understand responsibilities of PM, but maybe in my context, I would like to set a few things at a framework, and then we can build on top of it, right? So the first responsibility is to set and contribute to a product vision. depending on which level of organization you are in, you either contribute to the product vision or you co-create the product vision. So that's a primary responsibility of a PM. I've just flashed one classic example of a Microsoft product, and Teams is been very popular. And if you see, that's the vision that Teams is set out, and these are the key mission that we are going after. So just to give an example, this is how we're going to set and contribute to a product vision. And the responsibility, second responsibility of PM is to, now that you have a vision, now that you have a mission that you go after, now that you identified what are the problems that you want to solve, now it's your responsibility to collate and compile all the ideas. And ideas can come from anywhere from the floor. It can come from your engineering team, it can come from your customer team, it can come from your marketing, sales, operations, support, whatnot. So the idea is to get those ideas and compile those ideas which make sense, right? And constantly get feedback on top of that, right? And the reason I put this diagram is there are plenty of ideas to solve, but you have to pick those sweet spot of ideas which actually make meanings to your business and to your customer. Obviously, the plan step responsibility, the third responsibility is to plan and prioritize. You as a PM, you should always be on the ground to say what is happening, what are you going to deliver current, what are you going to deliver in the near term, and what are you going to deliver in the future term. Okay. The fourth responsibility is to build a product roadmap. Again, previously it was about planning and prioritizing and building a product roadmap based on that, right? You just put a different, because different stakeholders want to look at different aspects of a product roadmap. When you're presenting it to a stakeholders, external stakeholders, you have a different aspect. When you're presenting it to internal stakeholders, again to leadership, it will be a different aspect. If it is for engineering folks, it will be a different aspect. So make sure that you build a roadmap which caters to different stakeholders. Obviously, lead the execution, right? So now, so far you defined why and what of the problem. Now you lead the product execution, right? Yeah, Divya, you raised the hand. Let's me finish this slide and I'll come to you, right, Divya? So make sure that every member in the team is crystal clear on what goals that you're going after. And make sure that your marketing, support, and dev teams across cross team are very clear on what they want to go after. Ensure that your specs are clear, your whatever tool that you're managing in the specs is clear, right? That's the next responsibility. Okay, Divya, I think you have your raise. Why don't you go up and ask your question? Okay, fine, not a problem.
Suman, there is a point by Harsimran Gandhi. She mentioned on Q&A box that number 3 is related to priority strategy like Moscow.
Yeah, Moscow is just one framework. There are multiple frameworks that you can arrive at it, right? Must have, should have, whatnot. But there are different strategies that you can arrive at coming up with planning and prioritizing. I just throw you a responsibility, but how you come to that is up to a framework that you want to use. And there are more than 20 frameworks out there which help you to get to this prioritization. Okay. And I think obviously the biggest thing is PMs need to master shipping, right? If you don't ship, if you don't deliver and quickly learn from the market, you will fail fast. You will fail quickly. So make sure that whatever you did in the last 5 steps, make sure that you ship, you learn from the customer, and obviously you get feedback and you ship more. Okay. So far we talked about why product management and the key responsibilities of PM. Can somebody say if I missed any key responsibility of a PM? Did I cover all the aspects of PM in this 5 responsibility slides? Using anything I missed? Okay. There is a chat coming up. Let's see. Budgeting, collaboration, I covered it in the execution. Budgeting will be coming in planning and prioritization. Yeah. Ownership and accountability. See, if you are a front and center of a product, you own everything out of it, right? Yeah, there is always a role defined. For example, you have an engineering team, you have a design team, you have a research team, you have a customer success team, you have a marketing team, you have a sales team, you have finance, whatnot, legal and all that. So there is always accountability defined at each aspect, but it is up to you to stitch all of them together, right? So make sure that you bring in all aspects. But if you see the responsibility that I covered, pretty much cover every aspect of the product management life cycle. Okay, good. Yeah, obviously product development is in this, right? When you're doing a product execution, we'll come to technical skills that's needed. We'll come to that later, Praveen. But these are the responsibilities. I'm not talking about skills yet. I'm talking about the responsibilities of a PM. Okay, so there was a survey done, right? And to understand what time spent by product management on various aspects, right? And if you see in this chat, in this slide, okay, starting from the right, PM, you'll spend most of the time in defining product strategy. You'll spend time with engaging customers and partners. One of the key things that you will do always is reviewing the metrics. You'll always be looking out at the market and the competition. How are they doing? How are they framing up, right? And then pricing and packaging, it's a very small area of a PM, because if you see, it's only 2%, because pricing and packaging is normally done by a SME and expert group. And me as a PM so far, my involvement has been very low in pricing. Yeah, I would feed into them, but what goes into the pricing is done at a very strategic level. And then obviously, when you are a PM leader, you are spending a lot of time in coaching, team management and recruiting. And then some time is going in planning and road mapping, collaborating across teams, refining the product requirements, and obviously collaborating with technical and design functions. So overall, this circle covers average time spent by a PM. Right? With that, what I will now get to is what are the key skills needed and to make you more successful in this role. Right? There are 3 essential senses, right? It's similar to 6th sense, right? So, or whatever senses that we have. I'm bringing 3 other senses. One is product sense, analytical sense, and execution sense. And we will spend some time on each of these senses. What does it mean? Product sense is the ability to usually make correct product decisions even in the presence of major ambiguity. So you have to underline the usually and ambiguity. As a PM, if you just started as a PM, you may not be good at making correct product decisions. But as you get better at PMing craft, you will start making product decisions, right? And as you move up the ladder, the ambiguity that you have to deal with will also increase. So please make sure that you always be prepared that you have to deal with ambiguity, and within that ambiguity, you are supposed to make right product decisions, both at a macro level and at a micro level. When I say macro level, well, whether this product will meet the market needs or not, that's a highly macro level, right? And at a micro level, you are on the ground, you're working with the design team, you're working with the engineering team, even up to a right level of error message. Now, the question you ask is, well, how do I develop this product sense, right? So from my point of view, there are 3 ways to do it, right? You have to be a champion of your customer. You have to be completely understand your customer journey, where they come in, where they exit in the process, what is happening. You have to be typically conversant, comfortable with your customer. And you have to be a domain expert, whether you are in insurance, healthcare, fitness, finance, whatever. Domain knowledge, you have to pick up the domain knowledge. Now, there might be a question that what if I move a PM from A company to B company, or within a company, you move from A group to B group? Yeah, you always start with the 0 domain knowledge, but you can always build that domain knowledge with the right framework. And obviously, you need to build the creativity. Now, is creativity given? No, you can actually build that, and there are multiple ways to build the creativity. One example that I practice is when I'm playing with new apps, I try to observe how they're solving a problem, how is the user experience, why did they make such decisions. So I make some intelligent notes around it, and I try to see if I can apply in my own context. These three come together will build product sense, will help you to build product sense. See, I see two participants raise hands. Shivam, is it a good time? If you can, they can ask questions. How is the plan?
Yeah, they can ask questions. Do you want me to give them the microphone access?
Yeah, please. That will be helpful. We can make it interactive.
Sure. Himanshu, you can ask your question.
Yes. Am I audible to you?
Yes, Himanshu, go for it.
Okay, so the question here is, see, you in the last slide, you have shown us that the project management's responsibility is to engage with the customer partner and research the market and competition and everything. But in general, what we see all across that there are line of business SMEs, LOBs, lobsters, and then we have product manager, we have program manager, project manager, and all. So I just want to understand what is the roles and responsibility, or is it a common thing that all of them are doing? Because I mean, essentially it looks like everybody is engaged to build the product or engaging into that product. So if you
Great
can
question.
clarify.
So let me answer this. So this session that I'm talking about is mostly around product management, right? And you brought up a good point. There are various roles come together. For example, let's talk about project management versus product management. Project management is all about tracking, execution, making sure the risks are tracked, make sure that it falls under budgeting, and ensure that the communications go out. That's a project management, right? Product management is about whatever that lens that I talked about so far today. And within the companies, how companies say, let's say if you're in a startup, you may not have many people doing all of this. You as a PM and a co-founder might be doing all of this for, as a team. But let's say if you're in a mid to a small medium company, there might be different functions doing this, right? There might be a marketing person, there might be a pricing person, there might be a customer success person. And let's say if you're in a corporate, you might have a very structured roles, right? You might be having an operations team, you might be having a marketing team, you might be having an intelligence team, you might be having a product management, you might be having a PMO, which is project management. So as I told you, right, as a product manager, it is you have to bring everything together to ensure that you launch and learn and quickly iterate on the product.
Okay, so you're saying it's more like based on the size of the organization, we can break it into different profile and allow them to work on respective areas.
So depending on where you are in the company, depending on which stage your company is, the role of a product manager will be defined in that context, right? And then in a large corporation, there might be a different expectation, and within the company, within the role, the PM, product management principle, every group may have a different expectation. But broadly, this is the curve, right? You might be spending plus or minus somewhere, but this is where you will be spending a lot of time in these areas. I think there was a second question raised. Shivam, can we bring that person?
Yeah. Niti, you have the access now.
Yeah, Niti. Okay, Niti, now can you hear us?
Next one is Simran Gandhi.
Hey, Simran.
Simran, you have the access now.
Okay, Suman, if you can hear us? Okay, let's do one thing.
Yeah. Okay. Suman, so I have a question with respect to the previous slide. If you can just, this one. Okay. So basically, I'm working as a product manager in TCL, and we have a different, I would say. Sorry. Okay, so we have a different, I would say, some twist to like how we work. So just wanted to understand like how this actually happens. So when we're talking about let's say pricing and packaging, or let's say about the market research, so some of the companies I've seen, even I was just searching for some of the research papers. So most of the companies, they rely on Gartner or some third party vendors to provide such information. So yes, that is something that product manager usually work in that area. But sometimes I've seen like people rely on the vendors who are expert in that area to provide them, fetch them that information, because that is like not that much time consuming. Yes, the money will be involved in it, but that will save a lot of time, and that will just boost the things for the product journey going ahead. So just wanted to know like whether it is good to get the help of the vendors, or it is like the market research should be done by the product manager. So you can just clarify this part.
Yeah, a great question. See, not all companies can afford to bring in vendors and bring in third party to do the research, right? And it's always good to have that angle as well. But as a PM, I'll tell you my example. Right? The way I learn the competition is, I learn the market is, there are various firms, various platforms. For example, I go do buy a demo. I do a demo sessions, right? I go into their product, play with the product, set up some scenarios, and learn from that. That is one. And then there are very open forums where these companies come and sell their product. They sell their features, they show their features. I go and look at the customer feedback, right? And I look at how market is going forward. So there are different ways a PM can do some kind of direct research, not secondary research or relying on vendors. So it is always good a PM having both. But I would start with doing your own research first, have your own mental point of view, and then bring in the external and then ratify together, right? Because you may not be able to go details than what you can, right? Because Gartner and other vendors can have access to more detail than you have, right? So you can do your own research, you should do your own research, and also bring in, depending on each company, how much they can afford, in what stage you are in. Okay. Great. So
sorry.
Go ahead, Niti.
There's Praveen here, Suman.
Yeah, Praveen, yes.
One question to you. So on the from the product manager perspective, right? Basically, if not a big MNC setup, usually they'll be more responsible for the branding and go-to-market planning and all. So anything on that line you want to give the understanding?
If you're in a startup, let's say if you're in a small setup, it is your co-founder, it's your founders, and you, PM, are responsible for branding, collateral, go-to-market strategy. So you are playing a larger role there in influencing the branding and go-to-market and the content. So PM, that where it gets more and more strategical, right? So, but as you move up, as you let's say if your company size is growing, you can afford to bring different roles, which can take up a different aspects. But in the initial stages, you as a PM working with the founder, in fact, co-founder is doing a lot of heavy lifting and doing the marketing, doing the go-to-market approaches, learning and failing. But PM, you are playing a critical role there. But in larger organizations, your role will be predefined. So maybe you are confined to that role, but doesn't stop you to at least go and understand what's happening in other spaces, right?
Got it. So this is typically a MNC setup pie chart you're showing up here.
No, this pie chart comprises of every. So if you see, the percentages can vary, right? If the pie chart is typically a PM does all of this. Now, if you are in a startup, the percentage of doing on pricing and packaging may vary. The marketing and go-to-market case may vary. But let's say if you're an MNC setup, that percentages vary, right? It may be 0 or 1. But end of the day, you are influencing all of this. Is my point. That's the point that I want you to take away. Don't worry about the percentages here. It will vary from your setup, which context you are in.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Let me get to the essential senses, right? Hope you got a sense of what is product sense, right? Basically, it is about 3 dimensions: customer empathy, domain knowledge, and creativity, right? And I keep following a lot of great PMs in the social media, whether it is Twitter or Twitter or LinkedIn. One of the gurus that I follow is Shreyash Doshi. So this framework was actually coined by him, so which I liked and I try to keep practicing it. The next sense that we as a PMs, as a product persons need to develop is analytical sense. It is ability to frame the right questions. It is ability to evaluate multiple facets of a problem, derive multiple solutions, and simulate the possible outcomes. This is a sense that we all need to develop. Okay. And then execution sense, the ability to align people towards a particular objective and orchestrate and get things done. Right? You need to convince all the stakeholders on why do you think something is important and why it is needed to be done at right now. If you don't do it this, what will happen? What is an opportunity cost? What will customer lose? What will business lose? So those are the sense that you need to develop and ensure that you align people and execute and learn from it and move forward. So far we talked about why product management, right? What are the 5 to 6 responsibilities of a PM, right? And what are the typical activities that a PM does? And what are the 3 key senses that a PM need to have to excel in this role? Okay. Now I'll bring in a different dimension. We'll talk about skills that are needed to be successful in this role. This is very similar to what we talked about senses, but this is more prescriptive, right? So first you need to have customer experience orientation. So this is what we talked about earlier, right? You need to be deep in your customer decision journey process. You need to exactly know which area of your customer has pain points, what problem you're trying to solve. If you solve the problem, what will value that customer will get. Okay? Market orientation, we talked about it, right? You need to have a deeper understanding of market trends, your partner ecosystem, your competitive strategies. If you don't do that, you'll be out of the, you and your company and your product will be out of the market. You have to have a business acumen. So as you move up the ladder, if you really want to excel in this role and actually move from a product management to a product leadership, business acumen is one of the key pillars that you need to be mastering on, right? You need to be very comfortable with business strategy, portfolio management, prioritization across portfolio. You need to be comfortable with go-to-market strategy. You need to be comfortable with identifying key metrics that you want to track. One key question, I think one of the participants has already asked, technical skills. As a PM, do you really need to have a strong technical skills? I would say yes, but not at a level of coding. You don't need to write a code, but at least you need to understand the technology trends. You need to have a sense of architecture. You need to understand what are the limitations that a product and engineering team is taking, so that you can have a meaningful conversation with your customers, with your users, and also prioritize your roadmap accordingly. So you need to have that technical orientation, I would say. The last thing which we all tend to ignore is soft skills. If as a PM, your primary role is to sell yourself, to sell your team, sell your vision, sell your roadmap, sell your brand, sell your market, right, to all the stakeholders. For that, you need to be mastering your soft skills. And soft skills will help you to become the top 1% PM. All these 5 are important, but different levels, you need to focus on all these aspects. So as you get better, you will see the difference in the decision that you make, the product value that you're bringing to the table, the ability to convince. So you will start seeing difference when you start imbibing these skills. Any questions? I'll take a pause here. Any questions on the skills? Yeah, I think Harsimran has a question.
There is a question on the Q&A as well, Suman, if you want to take it up.
Yeah, what was the biggest challenge? Okay, I could be candid. Okay, can we take these 3 questions in the last? We'll go with the flow and I'll come back to you. Great questions. Let's hold on, Mahinder. We'll come back to you. If any questions on this skill on this slide, please ask. But if not, we will go with the flow and we'll cover these 3 questions.
So Harsimran is asking a question. Sunetra also has a question. I have given Harsimran the option to speak.
Please.
Audible?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Suman, I'm not sure if that completely is with respect to the skills. So this question is like, I just want to understand the factors that we need to focus on when we are solving a customer problem or any problem that the product manager is trying to solve. Like exploring a vendor to solve that problem. Let's say we have a vendor solution in the market, and there is an in-house team as well. So you have an engineering team that can also try to work on that particular problem and provide you with some solution. So what are the factors that we should keep in our mind, like with respect to skills or with respect to technology or with the things that we have discussed so far, so that to differentiate and take a call, okay, fine, I will go with my internal team, and the vendor is not providing me that much, let's say, flexibility with respect to the product offering. But yes, in the other case, I could see like, yes, vendor is providing me that support, so I should go with that. So what are the factors that we should focus on?
Yeah, that's a great question. It deviates from what we're trying to do, but it's one of the key skills that a PM has to develop, right? So what you're leading to is, how do, as a PM, I make a decision on buy, build, partner? Like, when should I go after buy? When should I go after partnering? When should I go after building? That's a huge topic by itself, right? We can go deeper into it, but keep it short, right? As long if a problem that you're going after is core to your strategy, core to your company strategy and goals, I would always rely on building internally, right? But let's say if it is an extension or not fitting into your strategy and doesn't really add value to your customer immediately, it may add value. It may add value, but it is not core to your product or a strategy. Then I would go for either partnering or buying, right? And depending on the context of your company growth and charter, you have to make this decision wisely. For example, let me take a small example, right? Let's say if you're building, and let's say if you're building a health tech data product, which will predict. Let's say if you're building a product which will predict a person's diagnosis, whether the person has a certain problem or not, right? Now, the key aspect of this is getting the data. Without data, you'll not be able to arrive at the right decisions. Now, as a startup, you may not have all the data immediately, right? You may not have all the data that you think that you can predict well. In that case, you may have to go to certain alternate data vendors or source the data from different companies to start with. But as you grow better, as you predict better, then you can actually bring it in-house and then move quickly on that, because now your key aspect of your company is to predict whether the right diagnosis of a person, right? So in that case, you start with alternate data, you start with sourcing data externally, but you start building on top of it. Once you build better, bring that in-house. Make sense? So depending on which stage you are in, build, buy, partner will vary. So let's take it offline. That's a huge topic, but I will stop it here. You just keep it in mind. If it fits into your core strategy, core alignment, then I would seek to go after building it. If it is not really fitting in, then go start with partner. And sometimes it may cost also may factor, right? Or even though it fits into your strategy, but you need to go quicker to the market and understand whether this hypothesis is valid or not, then you quickly go buy something. But believe me, buying and merging into your company strategy will be a very tough task. It may not happen overnight. So the teething effort will be very high. So that topic, we will take it up in a different session. Okay. So let's do one thing. Let's quickly move to different slides. So I compiled 6 nuggets, I would say, where you will practice, you will get better at your PM craft, product management craft. The first thing is, Try to disengage yourself from tactical firefighting. What does it mean? You don't need to engage in, let's say there is a bug or the issue in the production. You don't need to engage right away. You have smart people who can take care of it. You focus on the long term. You focus on next 3 months, next 6 months, next 1 year. So focus on that part, right? Second aspect is fall in love with your data. You should become more comfortable with your data. Data is there in your system. If not, source it from externally, but try to make decisions mostly based on data, not on gut feeling. Your gut will become better and better based on the data. So please make your decisions around data. And we touched upon customer champion already multiple times. You have no choice but to be a champion of your customer. You have to understand deep insights of your customer. And you have to reevaluate your product value proposition every quarter. So if you don't reevaluate, you may shifting from the market and the customer needs, and you are not actually getting into solving the right problems, because market is evolving, customer expectations are evolving, the technology trends are evolving, the alternatives are coming differently. So if you don't evaluate your product value proposition periodically, you may go out of the market. So as a great PM, if you want to really excel, you make sure that you are reevaluating your value proposition every quarter. Provide leadership to your product is the next aspect. When I say provide leadership, you have to be leader in the front end, running every aspect of your product, whether it is engineering conversations, whether it is launch conversations, whether it is pre-sales, sales conversations, whether it is understanding the nuances of the product, technical limitations. Be in the front, right? Understand every aspect. So provide that leadership. So you should be very visible in every decision around the product. Okay? And then communicate everything. This is one thing that we underestimate. My PMs and me, and we sometimes come back, most of my time is going back in spending in communicating to various stakeholders. But I would say, put a structure to it, communicate everything. Even it is over communicating and coming back to stakeholders, but it is always good to communicate everything. When I say communicate, what is your roadmap? How did you prioritize? What is the framework that you applied, right? What features are going into the market? Why do you think they're going into the market? What communication around those features? Branding, everything. So make sure that you're communicating very crisply and aptly across. So these are 6 nudges that I would like you to understand and ensure that you take away this, right? So I was thinking we should take away with one framework, and there's this popular framework that you can use right away. You can take this printout and start applying, whether, let's say, if you're a budding PM or you're already a senior PM or you're already a leader in the PM, doesn't matter. You can take this and start ranking yourself in out of this, right? With how are you placed on communication from 1 to 5? How are you placed on influencing and collaborating with others? Rank it 1 to 5. How do you place yourself on domain knowledge? How do you place yourself on strategic planning? Rate yourself and also ask your peers to rate yourself. So you will get a feel of where you stand and you want to improve. I'll stop here before I get to the career pathing. Any questions on this aspect? Let me see if there are any new questions coming in. No. Okay. I would take this as no question. Let's move on. Okay. So there are 2 career paths depending on your company maturity. Typically there are 2, and every role has these 2 parts, right? One is you want to be an individual contributor all the way through and be called as an great IC product manager, individual contributor. But at the same time, there is also you're mastering the PM craft, but also you're excelling at people leadership, right? So that's 2 pillars, 2 career paths, I would say. Irrespective of which career path you choose, obviously you need to start as an associate product manager or as junior product manager, and you start moving up delivering key features. And when you start owning a team and ability to drive everything by yourself on that team, then you become a product manager. Senior product manager, now you're contributing to the strategy, you're also coaching the strategy, you're defining the OKRs, and you're moving in the right direction, then you become SPM. At this point, you may have a choice to either lead a product or lead a product and people. That will be a people, so that's a people shift. Now you can continue to be IC role and you can move up the ladder, you can become a principal. At least in large companies like Microsoft and Amazon and others, you have an IC role up to the VP, right? Vice President of an IC role. You don't need to be people leader, but you can be a great product manager. And same time, when you take up people leadership, you can grow up to Vice President and there's nothing stopping. You can go beyond that. So that's the typical career path of a PM, a product leader, I would say. I will stop here. Any questions you have on the career path? Okay, so there's a question from Bhaskar on previous slide, communicate everything. So when I say communicate everything, right? Let's say, let me take a simple example. Let's say you understood the vision, you identified the OKRs, you identified a roadmap. Fine, you identified the roadmap, but to deliver certain feature or a scenario, you are not just dependent on your own team, but teams across your company. How would they agree? How would they agree that your idea, your vision is important? Right? That's where your communication skills come up. How early you can go and convince that other teams should help you or your team to enable what you're coming up with. That is one. And then that is one style of communication. Other style of communication, you picked a feature, but your marketing team is saying something else. Your marketing is saying that, why did you pick this feature? Why did you pick this scenario? But I see that this is a feature which is very important that our customer is saying. So your communication matters. How do you convince your marketing and sales team that whatever you've taken up is very important than what they are proposing? Your communication skills. You have to go and convince your leadership team to get additional resources to rally behind your idea. Your communication comes into play, right? So that's when I say when communicate everything is not just communicating with your own team, communicating all across, up the ladder, down the ladder, across the ladder. Okay? Bhaskar, I hope I answered your question. Okay. Well, Narendra, I didn't understand your question. What is the qualification to become a product manager? Maybe we can take it offline, or maybe we can frame it better. Okay. We'll go to the next slide and we'll wrap it up with a question, right? Typically, great product managers, if you want to pick that skill up, naturally great PMs are curious. They are very curious. They are questioning everything around. They're asking why. They are relentless in understanding the natural part of the problem. They are good at managing people, right? Because once you have a product and people, there will be natural conflicts coming around. So managing people will be an art that great product PMs can pick up. They're obviously creative. They think big pictures. They are practical. They are very, very organized, right? So PMs need to be very, very structured, and they're very deliberate and organized. And obviously, you are very crazy about building what you're building. Because if you're not crazy about and passionate about what you're building, you cannot bring everything that you are trying to do. So whatever in your today, wherever you are, see if you are really passionate about what you're doing. If not, find an alternative, right? Or get deeper into what you're doing so that you can get better at PMs. Okay, final thought. Most of you heard of a T skill, right? You know the T skill. One is the horizontal and a vertical. You are good at one, but you're also, you are trying to get it horizontally. But as a PM, I would like you to practice something called I skill. That I'll explain it a little bit, right? On the top bar of I, it is about being in the clouds, right? You should be able to understand where the market is going. You should be strategic. You should understand where market trends are. What is your customer looking for? How is technology saying? So that you can craft that vision, the long-term vision, so that that's when I say your head in the cloud. You are thinking long-term. You're thinking 2 years from ahead, 3 years from ahead, 10 years from ahead. And at the same time, you are flexible. You know that this is where you want to get to, but how do you want to get to? Don't be constrained. You can be flexible around the approach. At the same time, you need to be having feet on the ground. You need to be detail oriented. You need to understand the complexity of the product. You need to understand how to ship. Okay. So basically, you need to be balancing these two. If you don't do this well, you will not be successful in your PM role. And that's the beauty of being PM, product manager, right? You are strategic, you're thinking long-term, and at the same time, you're bringing all your company, your team together to make sure that that reality happens. Okay, that's the final thought. Now let's take questions, right? So how do you want to take questions, Shivam? We want to take up the questions so far asked, and then we can take it from there.
We have questions on Q&A as well. And
okay, maybe what I'll do is I'll start with Mahinder. Mahinder has posed 3 questions.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of questions are being answered if you answer Mahinder's.
Yes. So the biggest challenge, I moved from an engineer to a PM role. So the major problem that I faced initially was that as a technical person, as an engineer, you always try to think about solutioning. Before you understand the problem, you're already thinking about solutioning, right? That's the problem of when I transitioned to PM. Before even I understand the problem, I started thinking about solutioning, which I think is a bad practice of being a PM. As a PM, we should spend most time in the problem, understand deeper why that is a problem, how big it is a problem. Is it really a problem? Is it a problem for one person or 10 people? Is it a problem for a bigger market or a smaller market? Is it worth it going after? Before even thinking about a solution. So as a PM, that was a bigger challenge for me. And I slowly burnt my fingers and then I learned to get better at it, right? That was the biggest challenge. So ideal PM candidate at a Microsoft, to the 5 skills that I talked about, that's a combination that we look at. You should be good at analytical. You should be looking, you should have a good technology orientation. You should have an ability to converse well with technical engineering team. You should be telling a good story around product. You should be able to break it down a large complex problem into small problems, manageable chunks is what we look. I know too many things, but those are the 5 skills. If you remember the 5 skills slide, that's where we spend time. Would not having an MBA, no, MBA from a premier institute will always help, but not always an MBA is needed, right? I think in the similar question, is engineering degree essential to getting a PM job? No, not an engineering. So it depends on, there are 3 aspects of a product, right? B2B, B2C, and internal. And within B2B and B2C, it's about, let's say if you are building, let's say an Azure product or AWS, right? You have to be very strong engineer. Let's say if you're being a Salesforce, a CRM, there is a subtle advantage that you don't need to be an engineering technically, but I still encourage that you have that muscle of how the product works. Until unless you don't have that muscle of understanding the product from a technology and from engineering point of view, you may not able to make decision. But for that, you don't need to have an engineering degree. Hope I answered the question, right? Now, how to transition from a project manager to, product manager product manager role can come from various domains. A project manager can become a product manager, right? An UX person can become a product manager. An engineer can become a product manager. A salesperson, a marketing person can pick up a product manager role, right? But I would suggest something. Do a few things, right? Try to move to product management within your own company. Try to convince your current company to provide that role. Let's say if your company is not in a position to provide a PM product manager role, find an alternative company with your current role. Let's say you're a project manager, but you know the parent, the company that you're going into has a product manager role. Get into the company with your current skill and then start building that. Yeah, there are some disruptions. For example, there are companies where take the risk because you may come with a good domain knowledge. You might come with a good design skill. Then there are companies where you can transition without having a PM knowledge or a PM expertise. But let's say if you're getting into a branded MBA program, there are companies where they go and get it from examples, IAMs or ISBs of the world, where you're doing a full-time programs. Then there is a chance that companies can pick up even though you don't have a product management experience. Yeah, I think I already covered in the Mukta's question. I think we answered. Ashutosh, do you have any precedents about leaders in technical software moving laterally into? And if yes, there's an experience level. Wow. So there are very good examples. If you go and search in the internet, there are good examples where people from a technology background became a good product managers, and they did very good job because now they know the technology side of it. They picked up product. So there are very good examples. How can you train someone to become? Yes. See, I didn't even know that product management role exists when I started my career. But during my career, I transitioned myself into a product manager role. And am I great at product management right now? Not yet, but I'm picking that skill day by day. So yes, you can train yourself to become a product manager. One inherent skill, irrespective which role you are in, product manager, product leader, project manager, operations manager, anything that you matter, you have to be good at communication and analytics. Product sense, you can start building. Can you explain more on data-driven decision making? What data and tool and tech to use? See, when I say data-driven, you can start with an Excel, right? You can get all your data and telemetry into an Excel and start analyzing over Excel. There's no great tool that can compete with Excel. Yeah, there are a lot of visualization tools. There are a lot of Power BIs and Tableaus and all the stuff, but you don't need to get to that far. You start with Excel. And in fact, you don't need to Excel. You can go, let's say, whatever database that you're in, start writing your own queries and exporting that Excel and start creating a pivot tables and start running the decisions around it. Right? That's a simple thing that you can start with. As you get better, then you can go into lot of insights. Hope it answered, Praveen. Himanshu, what do they do differently from technical or expertise? What do they do? I didn't understand the question, Himanshu. Maybe you can help me understand better. Sunetra is asking, what is the biggest challenge in the focus areas of PMs when working as a technical research or a data product manager? See, irrespective of which role, which area, domain that you're working as a PM, for me, I have seen the biggest challenge of a PM is understanding the problem is the biggest challenge, and quantifying that problem and rallying the stakeholders around that problem to solve that, getting that trust that you as a PM are understanding your area, you are putting the right frame of mind and ability to align the stakeholders around you. I think those are the biggest challenges of being PM, irrespective whether you're working on a technical, research, data or domain, doesn't matter. I feel these are the biggest challenge and focus areas. Okay, now let's see in the chat. Let's start with the Pratap Das, right? If one has a good control of presented, can I shift to PM role consider? See, that's what I told you, right? You can transition to a product manager role at any point of time in your career, but I will strongly encourage India today, it's still not mature enough that you come in with a sales background, I consider you a PM. At least practically not possible. So I would encourage you to move within your company or do a structured programs, maybe any program out there. There are so many companies, so many institutes which are offering a structured programming, and leverage that program to present yourself to get into a PM role, right? What is the significant difference between a product owner and product manager role? Anup is asking a great question. See, every company sets a different title. The difference that I've seen between product owner and product manager, product owner is inbound, working on inbound activities of a product management life cycle. When I say inbound, working with engineering team, writing specs, breaking down into manageable chunks, and working with Scrum or teams and making it iteratively built. And outbound activities like marketing, branding, and then pricing, that's the outbound activity, so product management. So product management has both inbound and outbound. Most of the people are focusing on inbound are called product owners. Outbounds are called product marketing. There are companies where there's a balance of these two roles, where you play both. Depending on where you are in, you can be a product owner, you can be a product marketer, you can be a product manager. Okay, and then role, career path may vary, but I've given you a framework. But if you do whatever you're supposed to do and excel in that role, you can have a good career path. Okay, that was a question. Ayush is asking a good question. In your experience, bigger challenge managing internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. See, every stakeholder comes with their point of view. And sometimes, depending on where the stakeholder is coming from, top of the hierarchy or with the external muscle, the point of view becomes more and more stronger. Now, the challenge that I've seen is convincing that, first of all, you need to open mind to understand that the point of view that is coming in is invalid, and break it down and prove it with the data. Sometimes the point of view may not be right. That you need to prove it why it is not right. That's been a biggest challenge, because if you don't convince with, either you get convinced or you don't get convinced, right? If you get convinced, you need to convince with the data points. If you're not convinced, you need to tell the community, to the stakeholder, why you're not convinced. That has been a biggest challenge. As a PMs, what I felt was sometimes I shy away from the conflicts. I don't take that conflict and I say, you know what, maybe it's a bigger stakeholder, I can't deal with it. It is beyond my paycheck. But I would say there is always a way to go and talk to the stakeholder and understand their point of view and see if that makes sense, right? That's been a biggest challenge. Can a project leader become So I think we already talked about it. It doesn't matter which role you're playing, you can always become a product manager. And you don't need to have a title of product manager. As long as you apply the principle that I talked about, you can be as an engineer, you can be an operations person, you can be a project manager, you can be a marketer, but you can become a product leader as long as the framework that I've applied. You don't need to have a title. Hope I answered the question. My question was on KRA. Architects are mostly driven around solutioning. PMs are, solution is aspect, but PMs are worried about the product. Architects are trying to connect the internal capabilities end to end. What is the right thing to do? What are the right trade-offs to do? But PMs are looking at the problems and solving the problems, whether the architectural decisions are making and actually limiting the problems. So the architect, PM have to go hand in hand. Obviously architects do cover, I told you, right, depending on the org setups, not all companies can afford to have architects, not all companies can have PM. So I told you there is a subtle role difference depending on how companies are set up. Hope I answered question. So Himanshu's question is answered, Ayush's question, Bhaskar's question answered, Sunetra's question, right? What are the common mistakes that most product manager leaders do? So I told you, right, I'll tell you my experience. Very quickly, I used to jump into solutioning. So try to avoid the trap of solutioning, try to understand the problem, quantify the problem, spend more time in the problem and leave the solution to an engineering team. You can always co-create, but that's the biggest mistake. Now, the other mistake that I do is I try to always, most of the time I try to get data, right? 100%, majority, 95% of scenarios you might get data, but there are 5% of data you might not have data. So you should not wait for a long time to validate your hypothesis. So if you have an hypothesis and if you think that strongly you want to do an experiment, go do experiment and learn from it. But don't sit on it for a long time, right? And you will get burdened. As you sit on long time, that problem will become bigger problem, that mistake. So these are two things that you should avoid, right? Which is validating, doing a lot of experiments, simulating that experiments, and then don't get into solutioning more quickly. Product manager and product development manager. I think there are differences. When you say product, I'm assuming they are engineering team. So product manager, you are spending most of your time on why and what of a problem. You expect your engineering managers or development managers on how do you solve it. Leave it to them and work with them. But you as a PM, product manager, you're working on why and what of a problem. Okay. So Himant, so Shivam, anything? I think we closed all the questions. Anything else?
Suman, I guess a lot of questions were answered. I see 15 and from chat as well.
Awesome. I think we went over the time. Thanks for staying back. If you have any further questions, please reach out to Shivam and we will see if we can get back to you with the clarifications. Shivam, over to you.
Thank you, Suman. This was very informative session, and I'm sure our attendees are going back with, at the very least, an extra insight on product management with them. Thank you so much for taking out time to share your experience and knowledge with us. I'd like to thank our learners for joining this session. And with this, I'd like to end this session. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Suman. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was great sharing my learning. Thank you.